Welcome to the city's webinar regarding planning for the future of Easton's waterfronts. My name is Dave Hopkins, and I'm the city's Director of Public Works. And joining me as a fellow panelist is Dwayne Tillman, the city's Director of Planning and Codes. Presenting tonight will be AJ Schwartz and Emily Bernhardt from the firm Environmental Planning and Design. The goal of the presentation is to inform the public about the planning process and the approach to producing a successful plan for the waterfront. Attendees may ask general questions during the presentation, which we will try to answer at the end. However, we have created an email address, waterfront@easton-pa.gov, and would appreciate that your input be sent to this address so it can be used to inform the plan. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to AJ and Emily.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Emily, do you want to share screen? What we hope to be able to achieve this evening is to take about an hour and really discuss the city's waterfront. And what we're talking about is both the Delaware River as well as the Lehigh River, and really walk you through the initial part of the discussion, what Emily and I, along with the staff, have discovered in terms of fact-finding existing conditions, and then start to have a discussion about possibilities. If we were queen or king for the day, what could we do? And in some cases, the history of Easton, the rivers themselves, as well as the existing infrastructure that is there, the dam that's on the screen right now, etc., really, or a backdrop. And we have to work within that context to really address any issues or any of those opportunities themselves. Emily, you want to go to the next slide? So in terms of kind of format, or if you want to call it an agenda for the actual discussion this evening, give you a little bit of overview who environmental planning and design is, as well as then talk about what the city's purpose of going through this planning effort, and talk in very general terms of the goals themselves. Emily and I will then kind of shift gears and start to focus on what we've learned along the way. That's what I refer to as discovery. And this is what we call existing conditions. Take you through some analysis, a series of maps, a series of slides, kind of harvesting or calling out from a lot of the studies that the city's done recently, as well as going back 10, 15 years and really understanding different aspirations. And then hopefully we can get into a little bit of interaction in terms of through chat room, etc., potential uses or activities. Clearly, the email address that Dave referred to, you guys can be giving comments through a longer period of time, and that's really where kind of the real kind of input will occur. We'll end with just kind of describing the planning timeline in terms of what are the next steps and kind of what that horizon is. Emily, next slide. Q&A at the end, and these would be for, I think, general questions, stuff that we can easily do without having to go look, do more research and give kind of firm answers. If there are questions that require a deeper dive, definitely put those in that address that's shown in the blue text, waterfront@easton-pa.gov. We'll be monitoring kind of emails on a regular basis through November 15th. So anything that's related to observations, possible programming, or it's kind of planning jargon, but possibilities of what could happen in terms of uses, activities, design solutions, desired amenities. And we'll talk more about that as we go through tonight's discussion. Emily, next slide. So a little bit about environmental planning design. We are, as Dave said, a planning and design firm. We're based in Pittsburgh. We have active projects in 5 or 6 states currently, and we've over the years have for no specific reason, but other than personal interest, and we've gravitated towards riverfronts, waterfronts, lakefronts, riparian zones, etc. We, as landscape architects and planners, see those edges in terms of communities and regions as places where people always want to be. And there's a multitude of uses that want to occupy the same place. So the notion of planning and trying to be able to accommodate and balance those uses, I think, become really important. The slide on the screen right now is just a kind of a smattering of projects that we've been fortunate to be a part of or work on over the years. There's a handful that are from the Pittsburgh region, anything from brownfield sites, old steel mills, et cetera, in terms of the upper left corner, Hazelwood, through marina development, in greenways where we have floating esplanades along a shoreline because we have a steep slope that we can't develop a trail per se on. Work in New York, and then coming into Florida on the edge of the Everglades. Emily, next slide. And purpose and goals of the study themselves. Really what the city is trying to do is look at what currently exists, that matrix, so to speak, in terms of development, whether it's Riverside Park, Scott Park, coming around to Delaware Canal Park. Look at that matrix of development that's occurred, as well as the pathways and the trails that you guys have successfully developed. Also begin to scrutinize places where we have pinch points, where we know that we have some congestion in terms of traffic, not motor traffic per se, but maybe bicycle or pedestrian traffic, people that want to be able to fish or access the water directly. And how do we better balance those types of uses? And then as the city has gone through a revitalization, really an influx of new development, residential development, and as the city continues to expand in terms of other adjoining neighborhoods, are there things that could be happening along the waterfront that really are opportunities that we need to explore and see where they can actually be designed or planned into kind of the riverfront themselves. We're looking at the Delaware River as well as the Lehigh. So starting up at Riverside Park in the bridge there, in the little diagram that's over on the upper right corner where the green shade is and Emily's cursor, coming down the Delaware past the dam and where the Lehigh confluence with the Lehigh River is, and then going back to Lehigh River upstream towards Hugmore Park. So in the case of the Pennsylvania side of the Delaware, and then both sides of the Lehigh themselves. In the overarching goals, in very simplistic terms, is are there ways of enhancing tourism and the visitor experience? And one of the key things that also has kind of come out in early discussions is the success that the city has experienced through promoting tourism has also now put more emphasis on what do the residents need and what is that residents experience. Second, achieving connectivity with local trail systems. Again, in Pennsylvania, we're fortunate, we're trail rich. Easton itself and Northampton County, lots of trails, in the opportunity to better connect trails. Can I literally get from the Delaware River to Palmer Township as an example, those types of connections, as well as trying to resolve some of the pinch points, those places of congestion along the existing system. Provide public amenities for a growing community. So as the demographics of the community have changed over the years, there's new residents. The needs of those residents may not mirror what was developed or planned for the waterfront, as was, anticipated back in 1990 or 2000. And so that evolving change within the community from time to time necessitates taking a step back and seeing what other things that we should be accommodating, or there are things that now exist in the riverfronts, the waterfront, that maybe we're not getting as much use. How do we resurrect or infuse new life into those facilities? And the last, which you guys, meaning Estonians, celebrate history, community, and culture. You're so rich in terms of that. And just a stroll along the waterfront that really kind of reads in terms of what has that 300 years of evolution that's gone on in the city, reads very strongly. Emily, next slide.
So moving on to some of the existing conditions and site analysis maps. We've studied and documented the existing conditions to better understand the waterfront and the existing features that may impact or influence the future investments that we propose in these areas. We analyzed information related to existing infrastructure, hydrology, local demographics, and circulation, to list a few. And we've also reviewed the city's active transportation plan, comprehensive plan, and other planning documents to gain some understanding on the challenges already identified, but then also, the opportunities. Here, this map is showing some of the challenges with pedestrian and bike safety found in the city. And we've also used these city planning documents to gain insight on the future projects and aspirations, such as the city's overall trail planning and improve connectivity to the trail experience. To ensure that we're studying all of the aspects of this analysis, we'd really like to invite you all to identify any issues or areas that we haven't studied that would be beneficial to include in this documentation and mapping process. So please share those to the webinar comment email address.
And one thing, Emily, while that slide is up on the screen, you can see that we're looking at areas well beyond where the waterfront is itself. And I think that's an important thing, is really understanding what is going on in the neighborhoods, whether it's a local park, neighborhood park, playground, trail connection, etc. Clearly the influence of downtown and the development that's occurring, the change in terms of the residential nature of downtown, etc., really does, while it's 5 blocks away in some cases, really does have an influence on what are those possibilities within the riverfront, the waterfronts themselves. Emily, go back to the previous slide that showed hydrology, just to hit on this one a little bit. So the upper right corner is the one slide, figure 2, as it's labeled, is giving kind of an explanation of floodplains. As I think most residents of Easton know, a good bit of the downtown is challenged because it sits low, close to what the water level is. And then you do have the interesting circumstance where you have the dam and the lock system, so that the Lehigh sits at a higher elevation. It pronounces the floodplain itself. One of the key things as we're going through looking at possibilities is what do we, if there are ideas, if there is development opportunities for recreation, etc., along the waterfront, how do we get that to coexist or coincide, cohabitate the floodplain areas themselves? We've had some initial discussions with a variety of stakeholders and have gotten more keen insights in terms of what those challenges are related to the flooding aspect. But that's probably one of the key drivers of anything that happens on the river. The rivers themselves have to be respectful of what that floodplain is and the significance of, if there is a flooding event, what that poses. Emily, if you want to go back, sorry. terms of opportunities and constraints, that's a fancy planning term for what are the challenges that we have in terms of constraints, and then are there things that don't appear today that we see as something that could be, and that represents the opportunities. So in addition to kind of doing the scholarly review or the literature review, all the various plans and the existing activities that the city is undergoing, spending a lot of time within the waterfront itself, both rivers, lots of photos, etc., flying a drone around to get better views, glimpses of some of the situations and circumstance is really what this next section is. And one of the things I think that came out just as a person who is in the Lehigh Valley, is in Easton in a frequent basis, but not immersed as being a resident and not being there every day. Sometimes you see some insights, you see some things that maybe others that are close to it don't necessarily see, or you've kind of lost sight of over time. Emily, if you want to go to the next slide. One of the interesting things about the waterfront itself is because of the bridge structure, again, MLA being from Pittsburgh, the city of bridges, bridges to us are the structural edges of any kind of river environment itself. And they almost begin to act as dividers, almost like walls in a house that define rooms. And so the graphic on the screen literally shows kind of this architectural kind of element or characteristic that has evolved, not probably planned. It's just happened over time as a bridge was constructed or a dam was constructed, etc. But you fundamentally have 4 different rooms that make up the waterfront itself. And these rooms have different character to them. You know, and if you think of room 1, which basically is going from Riverside down to the downstream side of the dam as we drew the graphic, that character in that section is completely different than what you find in room 2. Room 2 is that area that would be from fundamentally the McDonald's and Larry Holmes Drive above the dam over to Delaware Canal Park, much more urbanized in many cases, meaning it has a lot more wall, physical, hardscape types of constraints that you'll find over in room 1. And while room 1 is on the edge of downtown, there's more of a sliver of a shoreline and an embankment. And the character of the uses is completely different. Both those rooms are completely different than as you move towards Hugh Moore and go into the purple area, which we called room 3. And so we use the kind of this architectural kind of analysis as a way of kind of navigating through the waterfront themselves and beginning to pick through what we understand or kind of areas where some additional development possibly could occur if it's appropriate, or places that we needed to spend more time and try to figure out how to get them to be more fluid in terms of connectivity, etc. Emily, go to the next slide. I'm going to kind of walk you around the waterfront, basically in a counterclockwise fashion. We'll start up at Riverside, go up the Lehigh, then come back on the south bank of the Lehigh and end at Delaware Canal State Park. So up at Riverside Park, you have this this gem of an amphitheater in terms of permanency and kind of, well, I'll call it the sophistication of the facility. This isn't a couple rocks where a 3-string band plays on a Saturday afternoon. Formal events, this is what this was designed for. Unfortunately, it has some limitations because of proximity to parking, being able to get easily from downtown over to the riverfront itself. It does have some acoustic challenges because of the proximity to the bridge and the ramps, et cetera. But it is clearly one of those areas that there's been a lot of discussion over the years of how to program that space, how to promote it in terms of a venue, when you also have amphitheaters and other things elsewhere along the waterfront. So that's one of the areas that we definitely are going to be digging into. The trail connectivity, the upper right photo, clearly that's new trail paving that just occurred over the summer. Can that get extended to be able to better connect to some of the other city trails or regional trails? That's another aspect that we're going to be delving into. Emily, next one. So Scott Park is, I think, where most people would look at as the heart of the Easton's waterfront, where most of probably the history, as well as kind of the hub, the beehive of activity, so to speak. So everything from playgrounds to the water access, which is down in the lower right corner in terms of the images, the stage, the kind of the concert lawn, the sculptural, the art garden itself, the trail. It has a variety of things. It's probably one of those places along the waterfront that is loved to death because it's programmed so much, right? There's a lot of load, as we would call it, meaning a lot of use that occurs in terms of those that particular location. A lot of discussion in terms of being able to more easily or safely get folks from one side of Larry Holmes Drive over to Scott Park. Looking at, is there opportunities to better utilize the lower elevation closer to the water while it's in the floodplain, to be able to better promote water access. Those are all things that people have expressed thus far. But Scott Park really kind of punctuates the end of room one in terms of that beehive, as I described it, of activity that occurs there, whether it's the farmer's market, stargazing, other programming that occurs on a regular basis. Emily? Now moving up into room 3. So we're going up the Lehigh River, be on the north bank in the first set of images, or the next set of slides. Couple key things in terms of this area. You have neighborhood, a lot of vitality up on the bluff. Many of you are familiar with Lehigh Drive itself in terms of it's a fairly fast street, if I can say that. It's not necessarily the most pedestrian friendly or bicycle friendly. It also has a broader floodplain. There's actually some land that is potentially could be repurposed or reimagined in some way, shape, or form that allows you to potentially have more gracious access to the water itself. It's also away from the dam. So as you move further upstream in terms of the Lehigh River, safety in terms of water sports significantly improves. And obviously, one of the signature or the key characteristics in terms of this portion of the waterfront itself is the trestle, or what some people refer to as is Easton's version of the High Line, that will be coming behind Wawa and the McDonald's that will be shown in the upper middle photo, where there's the elevated railroad that eventually lands back on ground and heads towards Palmer Township in Freemansburg itself. Potential opportunity for a major trail connection, being able to literally connect over to Delaware Canal Park or to New Jersey, and then, as I said earlier, to Palmer Township. So room 3 probably has a wide variety of things that are possibilities. It's just trying to settle on what makes the most sense and is it the right use, given the need for access, parking, et cetera. All things that need to be considered. Emily? And then swinging around on the far end, so the most upstream end on the north bank of room 3, we're down in terms of the images on the far end of Lehigh Drive, where we have the rowing center, the boathouse in terms of Lafayette, in a kind of an assortment of parcels, some publicly owned, some privately owned. What are the possibilities? The image that's in the upper right corner really kind of punctuates the challenge of Lehigh Drive. In many cases, I do have a wall on the hillside, the slope side of the road, not a lot of shoulder, if any shoulder whatsoever. And then on the riverside, I'll have utility poles, and in many cases, there's existing development buildings, structures, fences, whatnot, immediately on the other side. So not an ideal place for connectivity. So I think one of the key challenges in terms of this is, if there is opportunity to have public access, how to best do that and how to safely do that. Emily, swinging around. One of the topic areas in this section has been kind of the bus parking that's related, or in the past it was related to Crayola experience, not necessarily the same demand maybe as what was envisioned or expected at one time. This may be one of those possibilities to kind of repurpose, to reimagine. Bus parking would have to be still addressed in some way, shape, or form. It just probably doesn't need to be what you see in the upper 2 images. This is one of the places, again, it's in the floodplain, but it has a softer lie in terms of the topography of the terrain itself, that you actually probably have a lot more flexibility of what could happen, what could be if we were queen or king for the day. Emily, next one. And this is swinging back around on the south bank of the Lehigh. We're largely hovered over in terms of the drone image. The upper middle image shows the rail station. The upper left shows 3rd Street Bridge, and where kind of the convergence of all the forms of transportation in Easton seemingly come together in one 100-foot by 100-foot square place. It is a place where there's a lot of opportunity to be able to do better connectivity. Just one time I was walking the riverfront taking photos, and there's a man and his wife or girlfriend fishing. A bike rider was coming in the other direction, somebody walking a dog, and all of us looked at each other like, who goes first? How do we get through this? I would describe that area as dimensionally challenged, but clearly being able to, when you're down along the riverfront there, framed by the bridge itself, and when you're walking under that arch, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful in terms of the experience. Really want to be able to take advantage of that. So next one.
So looking at the southern portion of this entire riverfront, as AJ mentioned, it does have some dimensional challenges with connectivity to the neighborhoods in the south side, but also even within the trail, as he mentioned, with shared uses becoming challenged as far as the space and the narrowness of the trail, but then connectivity to neighborhoods as far as the elevation changes, obviously the train tracks, and even just pedestrian and bike safety. So we want to explore ways to really improve that and enhance that connectivity. And moving over to the Delaware Canal Park, we'd like to look into ways for the city to propose investments in this area in coordination with the DCNR State Park, which is along Room 4 in the canal area with the Delaware Riverfront. And we'd like to find a way to plan for the flooding events that occur in this area, because those are bound to happen. So it's a way of being mindful and being able to plan for that, and ways to improve the connectivity via vehicle coming from the South Delaware Drive, but even for pedestrian and bike access coming from the downtown area via the 3rd Street Bridge. And now looking at some of the potential uses and activities. So here's a list of some of the activities that we are exploring on adding to the riverfront areas or improving within the riverfront. There is a range from even public spaces like farmers markets or outdoor movie areas, or even river edge restoration. And there's active recreation like dog parks, splash parks, yoga areas, or rock climbing facilities. And there is river activation activities, much of which already occur today, but we want to explore ways to improve these and provide more access to the water directly, or improve boat ramps or kayak launches. And there's also a list of some supporting facilities that might be helpful to supplement or go along with a lot of these to just make them more viable in the community.
Again, Emily, the asterisks on that table, those lists represents existing, correct?
Yes.
Activities
Yes.
that currently exist.
Right. The next following slides show some examples of potential uses and activities from that list. So just visualizing that list.
And obviously, these are like precedent images, meaning there are other places of, for instances, and again, illustrations of the possibilities.
And we'd like to invite you to give any insight or ideas on any other activities that you could see in the waterfront or that you would like to see there. So please feel free to share those on the webinar comments email address.
And again, the list is not exhaustive. So Emily, there may be something that doesn't appear on any of the images or in the list themselves that I'm making something up. Miniature golf. I'm making that up. I'm just using that example. Throw that in the chat or the comments, or send an email. Or if yes, you're in support of, and again, I'm making this up, I'm not advocating. We definitely need pickleball courts. That would be fantastic that we have along the riverfront. We need to hear that type of thing as well. In terms of planning timeline, Emily, if you want to go to the next slide. So we started in earnest in June, maybe late May of 2024. Spent the summer kind of going through the due diligence. In September, coming into October, we have been reaching out to a variety of focus groups, organizations, persons that are really familiar with the riverfront. In some cases, they may be doing lots of programming, and so they have a lot of insights, and that's the purpose, really the role of the focus groups is to sit down, have a conversation with them in terms of what they see or challenges and opportunities, similar to the discussion we're having with you. As we come through kind of the capstone of what we call the due diligence period, or kind of the discovery, we wanted to be able to present what we've learned and start hearing public thoughts. That's the round one public input box that's below the baseline or the timeline itself. That's where we are right now. Our next steps in terms of through the remainder of the fall coming into the holiday season is starting to actually develop some design concepts and begin to formulate a strategy for the waterfront itself. As a part of those design solutions, projecting costs, So beginning in 2025, sometime in January, maybe towards the end of the month rather than the beginning of the month, be able to circle back and be able to present those ideas in terms of the city, the residents again. And then getting into February, begin to refine the kind of the recommendations, what those cost estimates and those design solutions are. So this is really kind of the beginning of that point of starting to cast the net much further in terms of discussion and thoughts. We've heard, as we said, from stakeholders and those that are really active within the waterfront itself, and have gotten first impressions from them. But I'm sure folks have a lot of different ideas, and it's time to hear what those are. Or if there are challenges that we haven't really dove into, that Emily and I didn't kind of expound upon, that we need to hear that as well. All right, Dave, how do you kind of want to navigate through some of the questions that are in the not the chat box, but the question and answer dashboard?
So we've answered the questions.
Oh yeah, I see that. Now you guys are way ahead of me.
But we definitely want to encourage people to share the email address that we set up for the project and get as much input as we can through that format. And Mazen, where did we decide to put the recording on the website?
I'll place it under the Public Works Department for the Waterfront project.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll put the link there so people can actually watch it.
okay.
And we can ask Debbie to share it on social media if you want.
Okay,
Emily, anything, well,
here, there's a couple of suggestions and questions. One question is from Melanie. In room 2, the pump station, what does that exactly do? That is a pump station that is, it's owned by the city but maintained by the sewer authority. It pumps sanitary sewage under the Lehigh River and over to a sort of a pit that's near Delaware Canal Park, and then that flows down on 611 and flows to the wastewater treatment plant. And then there's a comment from Katja, some of the activities suggested for the waterfront, like pickleball, would be better suited for neighborhoods so people can access them on foot. That would also be good input through the web address too.
yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
And Dave, just to kind of, I guess, further the comment or the question related to the pump station. So one of the maps that Emily had on existing conditions, again, for brevity and in everybody's time, we didn't get into all the detail. We have mapped all the combined sewer overflows, the stormwater outfalls, etc., that appear that kind of daylight at one of the rivers. Those obviously, just like the pump station, have an influence on what happens in the immediate area there. So those are all things that as we start delving into what are possible solutions and uses we have to consider.
Well, I think we're concluding at this time. I'd like to thank everyone who joined us. Thank you, Emily and AJ. Good job. And we really look forward to hearing from everyone and getting some ideas. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.